So, Mike Barth, how are you, man? Finally got you on the podcast.
It's hot outside. It's almost 100 degrees and it's summertime on a Friday, so I can't complain.
Yes. So, for those of you tuning in, I learned about Mike through LinkedIn, and he did a post that just caught my attention. And he, I think, is a success story, which I'm going to get him to tell us about in a few minutes. But he sort of kind of fell into working in a skilled trades business, and his career over the, I guess, 9 years now, 8 or 9 years.
Joined the trades in 2012, been with the
Okay.
current employer since 2015.
Yep. So he just fell into it. So Mike, welcome to the show. And I want to hear, let's start out by, who do you work for? What do you do? And kind of give everybody the highlights of your run here in skilled trades.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously Mike Barth, I work at Hoffmann Brothers. So we're a heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical, and appliance contractor. We focus, primarily on residential service, but we do everything from what's in the street to the fixtures in the home. And my role here is Vice President of Market Expansion. So really, that's got a lot of different job descriptions all in one, if you will. But most recently in September of 2020, I relocated from St. Louis, Missouri to Nashville, Tennessee to help start our Nashville location. So our first location outside of where the company was founded in St. Louis, and we did an organic startup here. So a greenfield. So didn't buy a business, anything like that, but we started one from scratch.
So I want to have you share your story that you put on LinkedIn about, you're just, you walked in one day and said, "Hey, I'd like to speak with the manager," and let's start there. I think this is a great story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so prior to Hoffmann Brothers, I worked for a small plumbing contracting company in St. Louis, and they only did new construction and underground utilities. So I had really no experience in the service world. But it was a small company, three employees and the owner, and we knew the owner was getting ready to retire, bought a house in Florida. So the writing was kind of on the wall. And one day, me and the other two guys were sitting outside. We were actually doing all the plumbing for a bakery that was across the street from Hoffmann Brothers. And one of them said, "Hey, I wonder what Hoffmann Brothers is paying." So a couple weeks later, I had hair halfway down my back at the time. I was a new construction guy. I shaved my head. And I walked into Hoffmann Brothers warehouse and I, said I wanted to talk to the plumbing manager. And people were a little confused, and they said, "Do I have an appointment?" I said, "No, but I want to talk to them about job opportunities." And they said, "Well, you can apply online." And I said, "Well, no, I'd rather just, meet with them and, talk to them." And so I did get the opportunity to sit down with the two plumbing managers at the time, and, had a good conversation with them. And I ended it with, I'm not the smartest guy out there. I definitely don't know it all. But I will work as hard as anyone else you have on your team, and I'm willing to work for free for a week to prove it. And they kind of chuckled and said, "Well, they can't let me work for free for a week, but they'll give me a job." So that's how I got started at Hoffmann Brothers.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. You know what I'm going to do when we produce this? I'm going to see if I can pull up that picture. It was just
Absolutely.
great on the beach.
Yeah, without a doubt. That was my final picture before I shaved my head off.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It was 3 days prior, maybe.
A little bit of grit and a little bit of tenacity landed you a job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when I joined Hoffmann Brothers in 2015, there was about 35 employees, relatively small business. And since being on the team, they've grown from about 35 to over 400 now in multiple locations. So it's been a real exciting ride, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity to get on board when I did.
So what are, some of the, what's going on in the labor market? I hear over and over from contractors that, their bandwidth is kind of limited because of the number of skilled trade people. I mean, everybody's having the same problem.
Yeah.
What's the labor market like there, and what's happening in your world on that front?
Yeah. It's one of those things where there's just not a lot of people going into the trades, which makes it a better opportunity for the people that choose to do it. And then the demand is consistently increasing. Less homeowners are doing things for themselves than they ever have, which creates more opportunities for employment as well. And if you find the right company, they're not having as much of a struggle, hiring team members. We've had 30% growth year over year for the past 8 years. And when we look at that, it all correlates to the core values and, taking the best care of the team member, they take the best care of the customer, and in return, the company wins. There's a lot of contractors out there that are struggling to get team members, but the ones that, are truly taking care of their team, I believe they're still growing. So kind of full circle back to, what the labor market's doing. There's tons of opportunity, and the wages are just continuously increasing. The benefits are continuously increasing for the people that are willing to get into the trades.
So is that sort of your secret sauce, is your internal culture of your business to retain? You have pretty good retention at keeping the techs that ultimately end up going to work for you, huh?
Yeah. The past, let's say 5 years, we've maintained roughly a 90% retention rate year over year. So for every 100 team members we have on a team, roughly 90 of them are left at the end of the year. And really, it's being part of a family-owned organization where they can make investments for the long term and not just for the short term to report a profit to shareholders. They can really invest in their team members and their growth. But then they continuously give back, as the company wins, the team wins as well. So, rewinding, a handful of years, we had a great year. They implemented free health insurance for the employee and their entire family. So there's no premiums that come out of our employees' paychecks, and they help pay a portion of the deductible.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's a big thing, for a lot of people, and a huge cost savings. And then, time off, work-life balance. I like to say that we're, definitely on the forefront of work-life balance in the trades. We completely eliminated on-call. So once our team members are home with their family, they're home with their family. Most recently, we eliminated nights and weekends. And so, and the only way we can do that is by having some of the best team members and people that want to be here when they're here and provide that quality premium product. So that way we don't have to worry about the warranty calls coming.
If you're considering working in skilled trades, or perhaps now are working in skilled trades, or maybe you're a business owner who needs skilled trade labor to make your business work, this is an important message. We've discovered that the U.S. government, particularly through the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS.gov, has been underreporting skilled trade wage data by 30 to 60%. So the hourly wages that they report are significantly lower than reality. And there's many reasons for this. We have some videos out on that if you want to check it out on our YouTube channel, but that's just a fact. So what we're trying to do is get Congress to make some changes at the BLS and start changing their policies as to how they collect data. They're currently using mail-in surveys to U.S. businesses, which is basically junk mail. And if they don't get enough surveys back, what they're doing is extrapolating, and that's why we have what we have nowadays. So let's solve this problem together, and to start that process out, we have to get the correct data out to people that are making life decisions. So do your part by going to skilledtraderescue.com, go to wage surveys at the top of each one of our pages, and take 3 minutes to fill out the survey. Your information is completely confidential. It goes into a big pot of information. You'll be able to actually see the survey results for the cumulative of people that have filled out the survey on the website. And hopefully once we get to critical mass, around 10,000 entries, we're going to go to work. We're going to get together with our coalition of the willing and get in front of Congress, hopefully, and get some changes so we can eliminate this significant headwind we have to face for decades now at finding new talent, getting them into an amazing career. Well, that's it for this message. Thanks so much for listening, and let's get back to our podcast. Right. That's big. Yeah, that's one of the things that I hear a lot about from interviewing people that are active technicians. And because everybody's so shorthanded, it's not uncommon for people to have to work on call work, weekends and nights and stuff just to keep their head above water. And the challenge is we've already got a tight labor market. Absolutely. And there's a lot of technicians out there getting burnout. And so but that was a big decision, eliminating on call, and wow. So do you do commercial or residential or both?
We're primarily residential. I like to say that we're probably 90, 95% residential.
Okay.
And we do some light commercial, we do some big rooftop units, different things like that. Our plumbing team does sewer lining and commercial spaces as well. I like to say that we don't let the property type define who our customers are, but we let our customers define the property type we work at. So our business model is based on, we want to work for the end users. We want to work for the, person who's occupying the space or owns the building, not necessarily, property managers, landlords, those kind of groups.
Well, if you're in residential, a lot of people own businesses, right? So they find a really good HVAC plumbing company. It's just a natural tendency to say, "Hey, Mike, thanks for doing the AC on my house. Can you fix this AC at my office?"
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great. So what are some of the challenges that you're faced with? So you've got some great stuff going on, right? So you've got great retention. You've been able to really, put a focus on work-life balance. What are some of the challenges that you're trying to address on the labor market with the techs? What are some of the challenges that they're having? Training, maybe. What's up with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, over the, past, call it handful of years, a couple decades, the training in the trades has definitely taken a swing in a different direction. There was a time where everyone went through a 5-year apprenticeship. They were working alongside, an experienced journeyman maybe for a long period of time. And now because of that labor shortage, companies are putting people in the trucks by themselves a little bit faster. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It creates opportunities, but it also creates the need to make sure that they have a different type of support than maybe they did in past years. Mm-hmm. And we've taken a completely, new approach to this most recently where we started Hoffmann Brothers University. So it's where existing employees in the business or people trying to get into the trades, they go through our curriculum and they actually get paid while they're in class for roughly 6 months. And then after that, they go through a series of ride-alongs. So it's almost, an expedited apprenticeship to get them set up for success once they're out there in the field running service calls. But really, I think the biggest thing is the approach to training is changing. So making sure we can still get those well-rounded professionals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you hit on something I think is really not spoken about enough in skilled trades in general, is that, compared to college, and I don't have anything against college, but it tends to get oversold to people. Mm-hmm. The only route is the college route to get ahead in life, that type of thing. Yeah. And one of the things that doesn't get reported hardly ever by the mainstream media is that, yes, if you want to be a doctor, lawyer, something that requires brain surgeon, whatever, you got to have a 4-year degree or more to do stuff like that. But you're graduating with a ton of debt. And you have to pay that back. And college debt, at least until they figure out a way to really mess it up, is unbankruttable. You got to pay it back no matter what. It's not like a typical loan. So companies like yours that are actually doing on-the-job training, paying people while they're working in the trade, you get a double benefit. That's a win-win-win. The technician gets assimilated into your company culture. You're paying them, so there's no debt burden for the student, if you will. Yeah. And you end up with a more rounded tech, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I kind of go back to my story, and my story may not be the traditional one that you hear about every day, but when I was 14, I first started working for a plumbing company in the summer times. And, it was just, probably working 30, 40 hours a week, helping them dig holes and, exposing pipes and, doing labor work. But high school was never really for me. And so I got in a lot of trouble. I was, skipping school more than I was going. And actually it ended up to a point where I ended up in a wilderness program in Utah. My parents shipped me off. And so I was sleeping in the desert under a tent, eating beans and rice for about a year. And came back to St. Louis, Missouri when I was 17 years old and went to school for 2 days, back to high school. And that same plumbing company offered me a full-time job. So I got my GED and I started, as a plumbing apprentice or a laborer and had some great opportunities. And at the time it was, definitely frowned upon. And I'm sure my parents were pretty scared about what my future looked like. But then you fast forward till I was, 20, 21 years old, and my friends were, that I went to high school with, they were starting to graduate from college. They had, a ton of student debt. They were coming out maybe making, I'm making up numbers here, but 40, 60 grand a year out of college with all this debt. And I'm sitting here working for a great company, making six figures, have free health insurance. I don't have to have a personal vehicle because I had a take-home truck. I thought I was on the top of the world at that time. Compared to my peers, and it definitely wasn't the traditional path. And I have nothing against college. Actually, I'm back in school now for the first time. I'm getting my first real diploma. A decade after getting my GED. So it's definitely every path is different, but I think there's great opportunities if you're open to them.
So let's say you get a technician green off the street. Another Mike comes in. I want to talk to Mike. I need a job, right? So you hire. Actually, has that happened to you? Where like a similar situation where you just have somebody walk in off the street and, hey, Mike, I need a job. I know you don't probably not on that side of it, but have you seen that history repeat itself in your life?
Very close. A lot of it now, I haven't necessarily had someone walk into the warehouse. There's people on LinkedIn, Facebook, that are great people that, they want a career and that's what they're looking for. If their values align with ours, a lot of times they get that opportunity. And that's really what my motivator is, and what I think is continue to push me to grow in my career is showing people that you can go the non-traditional path and still have an exceptional lifestyle and an exceptional career. There's nothing more rewarding than when a team member comes in and says, hey, I never thought I'd have a real career until I started working here, and my life's better than it's ever been. Or they come in and say, hey, my goal for the past 10 or 15 years has been that my wife doesn't have to work and can stay home with my kids. And because of this job, I've been able to accomplish that.
Yeah. So somebody comes in and you guys end up hiring a man or woman. And what's the growth trajectory? So you start them out doing maintenance probably, and then what's the typical growth pattern for Hoffmann?
Yeah, absolutely. So it depends on the trades. It's a little bit different, because we do plumbing, HVAC, electrical, and appliance. So, when I look at, plumbing, where I come from, typically, a team member has two career paths once they start, at Hoffmann Brothers, and that's what they're interested in. The first one is if they want to go more into the service plumbing side of the business, they may go through that roughly 6 month curriculum. So where they're in a classroom with, one of our master plumbers, they're learning the theory every day. And then they're also about, 30% of the time they're doing ride-alongs with, our employees in the field. And so they're getting a little bit of bounce. It's different than the traditional trade school where you're in classrooms all day, or it's different than the old apprenticeship where you're just riding with someone, for an extended period of time. But you're getting both. So you're getting classroom time. You're also getting on-the-job training. And then following, their graduation, and I guess rewind, that whole time they're doing that, they're making a livable wage. And when they graduate, we get them in a truck, and then they spend some time, riding with their field manager until they're ready to go out on their own. And the cool story about that is really some of those graduates and with that training program are some of our top producers in the business. Right. And because they understand the playbook in terms of customer service, they're getting all of the different dynamics of training, whether it's customer service, technical, how our systems work, et cetera. And they're really just set up for success for the long term to continue to grow in their careers.
So you actually worked in the field for a while, right? Yeah. And then, but you went over into, so your career trajectory, you did the field work, working with the tools, and now your career has evolved into a sales relationship development type position.
Yeah, I would say that my current position is more operational. Okay. So I started, like I said, summertime when I was 14, digging holes, 17, new construction underground utility company. So it was, laying pipe in the ground, water services, and then plumbing, new custom homes. And then when I joined Hoffmann Brothers team, the plumbing department was still relatively new. They had been in business since 1988 as an HVAC contractor, but were newer to some of these other trades. So my focus was actually on the underground side for the most part. I did a lot of install jobs, repiping houses, whatever was needed, but also did a lot of underground work. Was part of the team that helped implement or bring in sewer lining, sewer bursting to the business. But I was in the field every day up until end of 2020, basically. And so somewhere along that time frame until 2020, I was promoted to a field manager, but I was still out there, working along the side of the guys, providing training. And then in September of 2020, I relocated to Nashville to help open our Nashville location. I ran the very first service call we had here. And my roles continue to grow. And really, like I said, my title is a vice president of market expansion, but I'm also essentially the general manager here at our Nashville location. And then I also, focus on some of our other growth initiatives that we have going on in the business.
Cream always rises to the top, Mike. That's awesome. See, that's the thing a lot of people don't get is that I hear this story over and over about people that start out as a technician, and then some people gravitate towards sales, some people gravitate toward management. I like that idea because when you're young and full of energy and all your knees work, and all that stuff, you don't really plateau typically, unless you want to stay in the field. You can actually go into controls. Controls are a big deal now, right? Where you can, those ladders start getting heavy and you don't want to drag those compressors up on the roof anymore. So you can get into other things that, work your brain out rather than having to do it with your brawn, right?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And there's people that stay in the field and the trades their entire career and they have an exceptional life and they love it. But then there's also, it's a stepping stone for a lot of people as well. And one of my recent LinkedIn posts was basically 6 lessons I learned, growing my career in the trades. And it was a pretty popular post. There's a couple thousand comments on there, and I really enjoyed reading them because there were so many people that, replied back and they said, hey, I don't do anything with the trades, or, I've grown to this completely different functional area in the business. But what I learned in the field and the trades, when I was young was invaluable for setting me up for a long-term success.
I saw that post. So out of all the responses you got, what are like the top 2 or top 3 things that got the most, hit the nerves the most about that post? Like, what was the most, do you remember?
There was quite a few of people that were just sharing their story, and those were exciting. But what hit my nerves the most, which I enjoyed, was when people were tagging their kids or family members, and I'm like, read this, and really, hopefully, it influences people to join the trades.
Yeah, I saw that post. You get some good stuff that you've been floating out there. It's been great.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I want to switch over to money. Yeah, because this is one of the things that. One of the things that I get a lot of inquiries about, especially in our forums. We have a forum on our website that this one comes up a bit. There seems to be a disconnect between what the wage data is, which you can find on the internet. Like if you put in how much does a journeyman plumber make in Tennessee, Nashville, wherever, Memphis, it doesn't matter where it is. How much does it make? Do they get paid? Yeah. And interestingly enough, a lot of the data somehow, some way references back to the government reporting, Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics. I think you and I touched on that when we spoke recently. So what I try to do is I try to get the word out as much as I can as to boots on the ground, exactly what it is. So without getting into, trouble, I want to know, like, what do you hire a newbie right off the street? What do they make? What's the trajectory as far as wage growth at Hoffmann these days?
Yeah, there's I guess starting with someone right off the streets with no experience, they typically join the trades at around $20 an hour is day one, and I always say that their wage growth is completely in their control. A lot of these companies now, the reputable ones are merit-based organizations, and they're going to compensate people by the value they create. And in a lot of markets, there's there's journeyman scale. If it's a union city, something like that, that has some impact on the wages. And set some standards. But a company like ours, it doesn't have a big impact because we pay on value, and it's almost always better than those union wages. And so, when I look at it, starting day one at $20 an hour, if they have no trade school or no other experience, but it's merit based. So on average, our lead field professionals are making between $35 and say $55 an hour in the markets that we're in. And there's some great success stories. There's one guy that graduated from our plumbing class last year, so went through the 6-month curriculum, got in the truck. He's really just dedicated, and I think what makes him successful is he truly cares about the customer. He's in the trades not because of a love of plumbing or whatever it may be. He has a love for helping people, and when he goes into the customer's home, he just wants to help them. And that's the kind of person that most of our customers want in their home. And so now I think he just turned 20, but he was 19 not too long ago. So think of 19 years old. He was one of the top performers, making over $50 an hour with free health insurance, all of our benefits, 401k match. I mean, he'll have an exceptional life, getting into the trades young and fast.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any college graduates that decided that whatever they went to college for didn't quite pan out and jumped into the trades? Do you have very many of those in your demographic group?
I would say at least 20%, 25% maybe. It actually seems more common in Nashville than it did in St. Louis. But I would say that we have people, great team members in the trades that have degrees from business to the arts and everything in between, and they decided that what they were doing, they didn't love it. They were bored sitting at a desk. There's one guy that I worked with really closely, and, he had gotten a business management degree. He was a manager at, I think, a moving company or some other business, in their office. And he's like, I hated sitting at the desk. I wanted to, be busy. And quite frankly, I make twice as much in the trades now as I did being a manager with my degree.
And if he ever decides that for whatever reason he needs to move and it's into a market that Hoffmann's not servicing, there's a pretty good chance that he's going to find a job pretty easily.
Absolutely. And we're part of a best practice network called Nexstar. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but really what it is a network of contractors around the country that, share best practices, what's working, what's not. We kind of learn together, and they have some great training they provide to all different levels within the team. But it's been really cool being a part of that because we'll have someone in Oregon, for instance, that wants to move with their family to Tennessee. And the employer will reach out to us and say, hey, I know you're part of Nexstar, so you're a great company. This is one of my team members, and I think you'd be a great fit for your team. So it's actually the culture where it's not only that they'll find a great job, but their current employer will help them find the next job.
What is that Nexstar? What is it?
Yeah. NEXSTAR, so Nexstar. And really, it's a member-owned organization. So I think there's 900, maybe 1,000 now different contractors between like the U.S. and Canada in there. And there's, we use it as a training platform, but it's also a networking platform. So they have rules on there can only be so many members per, city, just to make sure that, the members aren't necessarily competing with each other. And there's we have PBOD groups, which is groups of leaders that meet on a regular basis and share their challenges and collaborate with other businesses, and that are willing to share information, sometimes as deep as, sharing their price book. And then the other thing is they have a ton of classes. So I would say they probably have a dozen classes a month in different areas, from sales to what we call the service systems, which is customer service. So every team member that joins our team before they go in a truck by themselves, they actually we pay for their flight, their hotel, everything, and they go through a 3-day training, a Nexstar training. That's basically the service system. That's
powerful. I know back in the day when I was a contractor, it was something that was run by ACA, Air Conditioning Contractors of America. It was called MIX, Management Informational Exchange. And it was, as a business owner, it was powerful because I didn't know what I was doing, when I first started in business. And I tell anybody who listen that, I know I never went to Harvard Business School, but I know I paid the tuition a couple times over from the stupid stuff I did, right? And it was really powerful stuff to be able to pick the phone up and, let's say I was having a finance issue, insurance issue, whatever, and I was be able to pick up a phone and call a contractor about my size, maybe a little bit bigger, and talk to somebody who's been through that, right? It's very powerful. And it sounds like this Nexstar thing is a great organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So back to the money issue. I want to find out how maybe you guys don't get involved in this at all, but one of the things that they dropped out of public education a long time ago was just basic money management.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I get comments from time to time on from people working in the trades, who usually happens with the ones that went right into trains out of high school, and they didn't get a lot of personal finance training from their parents for whatever reason, and it wasn't taught, home economics, that type of thing, budgeting was not taught in the high schools anymore. And they get out, they start making $20 an hour, and then within no time, especially if they're good, they're going from making $30,000-$40,000 a year up to some of them above six figures. And what ends up happening is their spending gets out ahead of their income. Part of your 6-month thing, are you guys doing anything about personal finance and budgeting, or you sort of stay off that stuff?
So not necessarily in that curriculum and that training, but we're working on integrating some other resources into the business for financial support, financial training. We do some stuff right now. We have different speakers come in, whether it's talking about 401k or different, investing, saving, financial responsibility. But we want to continue to extend our reach on those resources, and we look at it as one of those benefits that our team members, want and deserve. And really what we're digging into now is what are those platforms that will set them up for success that the spouses also have access to as well. And I think that's, where we're at right now. Because we want it to not just be for the employee to use, but the spouse as well, to really set them up and be aligned in their goals.
That's good.
When you asked me earlier, what some of the stresses, for the field professionals these days, and I said training, but when I think of what's on top of a lot of their mind, it's finances. And I have a friend that works here, and he said that it's definitely the case for him. And he said going into the trades was like going into the NFL. You went from making no money to a lot of money really fast, but you never knew how to manage it. And, he wishes he knew the things that he did now about financial planning, saving, living within your means before he started making all that money.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And that crushes many a family, right? And especially if you have what you call your free spirit with money, then you have your nerd, right? And if the free spirit in the family and the nerd don't get along, or don't learn how to cohabitate around, smart finances, that pillow talk gets a little difficult at times, right? Yeah. And that of course will spread over into your work performance too if things aren't right at home. So I commend you guys for even putting that on your radar. A lot of contractors don't. They just they don't make that available. So that's really, really good that you're doing that. What's some advice that you would give to the younger Mike first starting out that you would have done differently? Maybe, or on the flip side of it, what are some of the things that you did in your career trajectory that really made a difference that you could share with the audience out there that may be thinking about going into skilled trades?
Yeah, I think the first thing that applied to me, and it applies to anyone else, is we're in kind of the Amazon day and age, right? We want it right now, as soon as we're looking for it. And the best advice I could give would be focus on becoming the best at what you're doing, and drive to continue to learn and gain knowledge, and all those opportunities will come. And I see that in our industry a lot where, team members or anyone in the trades is focusing a ton on what's the next step in their career. And it actually holds them back because they're losing sight of what they should be doing today. Where if you focus on just gaining knowledge, getting the resources from the exceptional tradespeople around you, you're going to continue to grow faster than you could have ever imagined. Then the other one is, don't get tunnel vision on what you think your career path is. You know, I've never gotten a promotion or a new opportunity that at the time I thought was aligned with where I wanted to go in my career. And every single one of them was better than I ever could have expected. So it's really when you don't get tunnel vision on one direction and you're really just focusing on growing and learning personally and professionally, those opportunities just pop in your lap.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said for grit. Having grit, basically going in there and doing the best you possibly can, even if you're, dealing with some tough challenges, whether it be technical challenges or personal challenges or whatever, and just sticking with it, because people are always watching you, even though you don't think they are. And they see that, Mike is a guy that he's honest, he's hardworking, and he's worth, taking a chance on. That's what puts a lot of those intersectional things, like you start out, I'm going to be a service tech, and you work really hard at it. And if you do a good job and you try your best and take care of the customers, which is ultimately the best thing you could possibly do, you're going to have those crossroads where you're going to have a lot of choices in your life about which direction you want to go. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So before we wrap things up, you've got 2 offices. And so you've got the one in, you said Nashville or Memphis? I can't remember which.
Nashville. Yep.
Nashville. Okay. So you got Nashville, and where's the main hub at?
St. Louis.
St. Louis. Okay.
Yes,
and you're hiring in both locations.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're always looking for great people to join our team. Consistently growing, and anyone that, wants to even consider talking to someone about getting in the trade should absolutely get on our website, take a look at what we have going on, and reach out to talk to us, or, ping me on LinkedIn, Facebook, any of those platforms. I'm happy to talk to anyone as well.
Very good. I had one more question I want to ask before we wrap up today. So from your experience, is it possible with good money management, making skilled trade wages, to become a millionaire or multimillionaire working in the trades?
I would say that with good money management, everyone working in the trades should become a millionaire or possibly a multimillionaire. I look at, I hate using myself as the example when it comes to finances, but, I work for a great company that's been investing in the 401k, matching me pretty much dollar for dollar since I started roughly 8 years ago. I contribute part of my paycheck in there, and it lowers my tax bracket. But I haven't increased what I'm contributing since I was in the field. So I know it's realistic for anyone in the trades to contribute the same amount. And when I look at the projection of that 401k over the next, 20, 30 years of my career, it's going to be worth $5 or $6 million. And that's
Isn't that amazing?
Just 401k making plumbers' wages. And so absolutely a multimillionaire. And then if you look at any other financial investing planning outside of the 401k, that combined with the 401k, there's no reason that, anyone in the trades couldn't become a millionaire.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's the thing. Again, it's never talked about. Talked about. The only track that gets talked about is, getting your college degree and hoping and praying that you get lined up with a job after you get out of college that lines up with your educational degree, right? And that's good.
There's a ton of people out there, in the trades and on our team that, aside from maybe a home mortgage, they've never had an ounce of debt in their life, no student loans or any of those things. They're making a great living, investing in their future and retirement. Will retire at a healthy age and really get to enjoy, their hard work, everything they worked hard towards.
Trade schools. Do you have any trade schools that you guys hire out of for either one of your offices?
Yeah, so the one in St. Louis, probably the biggest one, would be Rankin, and then there's a couple other platforms. ABC could be another good resource for team members to reach out to. In Nashville, we haven't partnered with as many as we have in St. Louis, just because of the length of the time we've been open here. but Remington College could be a good resource, as well as Achieves Trade School, which is actually next door to our buildings, another great one to take a look at.
Do you guys do any tuition reimbursement for people in trade schools?
Yeah, different schools have different programs. And so, it's kind of a case by case scenario. It's not necessarily black and white on yes or no. Typically, if a team member went to the trade school before joining our team, there's not a lot of tuition reimbursement. But when someone's going through trade school well employed, for instance, the old plumbing program before we started our own curriculum, when I went through it, the Hoffmann Brothers covered 90% of it, and I was responsible for 10.